Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for showing up tonight. I'm Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road2College and the Paying for College 101 group. And tonight we are focusing on the Common App and helping you unlock your student's story through the Common App. So let me just do a few little bits of housekeeping before we get started. If you could put in the chat where you are watching from, if you've even started or looked at, some people have been able to, you can create, we can talk about that, a Common App account now, if you've done any of that. And here's a special question. Does your student, do they have a major that they are interested in that they're going to potentially use as part of the application? We're just kind of curious because we're going to touch on that a little bit later in the conversation. So if your student does have a particular major that they already know that they're kind of going to incorporate in as they're applying, great. If not, also don't feel pressured that they have to have one. So, and tell us if they're undecided too. That's perfectly fine. Let's see, my other little housekeeping comments are that this is technically a meeting, not a Zoom webinar. I only say that because you can unmute yourself if you really want to ask a question, and sometimes people do, and that's nice. Otherwise, you can put your questions in the chat, and I will be looking at the questions. If you want to put your video on, it's always nice to see people's faces. People sometimes do that, so I encourage it. We can't enforce it, but it's just nice to see who's out there. And I think that that's about it. We're going to get going. We are going to try and really keep this to an hour on a Sunday and finish up by 9 o'clock. But put your questions in the chat as we go through. If it's really important and people are asking the same question, I might interrupt Ellen as she goes through what she's going to share. Otherwise, we'll probably, go through a lot of the questions at the end. So let me introduce Ellen Whalen. She has, she's our counselor-in-residence as part of the Road2College services, counseling services that we offer. And I think, Ellen, we've been working together like 4 years, right? Is this the fourth?
This is our fourth season, yes.
Fourth season. Ellen is amazing. She's got a lot of experience. Been doing this before she and I even worked together. So thank you, Ellen, for all of your hard work and attention to detail. I'd love if you could share a little bit about your background, and then we'll get started with the slides.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. I'm happy to be here and help guide the families that are here tonight on the college admissions journey. I graduated from Wellesley with the BA in Economics and Spanish. I worked in Fortune 500 companies doing sales and marketing for over a decade before my children were born. And then I became a professional writer and editor for about 13 years. And in 2017, I became a college admissions counselor. And I really enjoy what I do. And so tonight we're going to be talking about how to help your students stand out in the process. And is everything okay, Debbie?
Yeah. Somehow someone never had that before was able to share their screen.
Okay, all right.
But I think we're back.
I just kept going. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll just dive right into the process, into the talk, because now that we have a challenge of ending in an hour, Debbie, I just love a challenge. Okay, so file, I'm going to.
And Ellen, just as you do that, I was looking through the chat. Some people have started an account, and we can talk about that. And a good range of different majors: pre-dental, commercial, dance, of course, engineering, pre-med and dance statistics. So I like seeing all these different majors.
Yeah, I caught a bunch of them as they went by too. So, okay, great. Yeah, that's just going to be helpful in the context of as we go through the talk tonight. So unlocking your student's story, secrets to crafting a compelling Common App and personal essay. All right. So college admissions has changed a lot since we went to school. And what's different mostly is that students are applying to many more colleges. it's imperative that they have a well-balanced list, and financial safeties are necessary for many students. The majority of colleges, though, do accept the majority of students. So as much as there's a lot of hype, the average college acceptance rate is 67%. So as you're looking at colleges, you might have noticed that they can tend to look alike after a while. You need to take notes on campuses to help write supplemental essays about why this college. But if colleges are looking alike, there are many more students than there are colleges, so students can look alike in this process, and that's what we're going to do tonight. Try to help you to help your student, or if students are listening, to stand out. So what are highly competitive colleges looking for today? And I'm defining them as having a less than a 30% acceptance rate. They are looking for well-rounded classes, not well-rounded students, like we were told when we were going to school. All right. So competitive colleges have an abundance of, well-rounded students that are, top scores and really good grades. And they have a name for these students, SP, standard positive. They use a lot of acronyms because they take a lot of notes. SS, standard strong, LMO, like many others. All right. Oops. So highly competitive colleges like pointy students, or students with a hook, or lopsided students. There's all different ways of saying it. And this is where a strong narrative can help to highlight how your student is different. So you might be wondering, if your student isn't thinking of applying to a highly rejected college, what about me? And this talk will also help you, because a strong narrative and depth in activities helps not only with competitive colleges, but it can help maximize merit. It can help with getting into honors colleges and programs, help getting into the state flagship universities like UVA, can help with local scholarships, and can help with competitive majors that can be made even more competitive by gender. And I'm going to get into the most competitive majors. And here they are. The 6 most popular majors, and maybe you saw a lot of those flying by as people typed in where they're from and what their students were thinking of majoring in. No particular order, but generally computer science tends to be the most competitive. I think aerospace engineering is the most competitive engineering major, and since there's so few programs, it might be one of the most competitive major in general. I think I saw an aerospace flyby on the sign-in. Anyway, so computer science, engineering, psychology, nursing, business, or economics, say it's at a liberal arts school and they don't have a business college, and then the biological sciences, or like the pre-med umbrella, chemistry, biology. Pre-med technically is not a major. All right. So you might wonder if a strong narrative is important. What's still under students' control as a rising senior? I don't know how many rising seniors we have, but there are a number of things. The essays, the personal statement or the main essay, it goes by either name in the Common App. It's a 650-word essay. And then the college-specific or supplemental essays, they've got different names again. And the most typical one is like, why this major or why this college. Activities, students can still add more depth and describe them well. Often seniors might suddenly become president of something. They can take on more leadership. So that's still something they have under their control. Their grades. The UCs don't look at senior year grades, but a lot of schools still look at senior year grades, and like first term if they're applying early action or ED, and obviously the whole semester if they're applying regular decision. Test scores, whether or not to share them and maybe to test again. Course selection, prioritizing rigor senior year, and what aligns with the personal interest potentially of what a student wants to study, if possible. The major students going to be applying to at college, Consider an undersubscribed major if possible, or be realistic about the competition. And so I'm going to show, this is UIUC, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Very few schools are transparent about admit rates. They happen to be, and you can
Admit
see
rates by major.
yes,
Right,
admit
yeah.
rates by major. Thank you, Debbie. So computer science has the lowest at 7.5%. And so what's happening here is it's a large university. It's the flagship of Illinois, and there are separate colleges underneath the flagship, and the students, every school is different. The students here have to apply to the individual colleges, and you can see the varying rates of acceptance. And this is in general, this is not out of state, in state. So that's another slice it and dice it. You know, like a computer science out of state, maybe it has a 2% acceptance rate. We just don't know. They don't give us those numbers in this particular slide. They probably don't spread it. I'm sure they don't share it that way, that information in state, out of state. So anyway, this is just, you can see the varying levels of different acceptance rates per college. All right, so I'm going to continue what's still under a senior's control, a balanced college list, making sure you understand and respect the competition, that your student might be amazing in your school, but there are, you know, thousands of high schools, and then there are international applicants. You know, it's the whole world. You know, they're getting applicants from around the world. Letters of rec. Has your student already asked for their letters of rec? I hope they have. And do they support the narrative? If a student wants to, you know, be an English major, are they getting a letter from their English teacher, for example? So interviews, sign up where they can for them. They can, some places you have to wait until after you apply, but if sometimes they run out of interview space. So if colleges have that option, sign up. Demonstrate interest, continue to show it. If you are, try to visit, for example. Interviewing is another way to show demonstrated interest. And that can be an overlooked aspect, and not every college cares about demonstrated interest. Generally, the public colleges, public universities do not care about it. Soft factors, showing kindness and compassion in the like values in the Common App. Future plans, how does your narrative support what you say you want to do? There's a question in the Common App about future plans. So items that are out of your control. It's a new slide, Debbie. So colleges' institutional priorities are out of your control, right? Your student could be amazing, but you know, they weren't an athlete, so they weren't recruited in that bucket. Maybe you're not a full-pay student. The school needs to balance their budget. Maybe they have too many young women and they need more males. And they could have a brand new program. Like data science was a big at a lot of schools. Recently, it's been added. So a lot of people, they need to fill up the program. So it just depends, you know, what's going on at the school. But every school has institutional priorities that we don't necessarily know about. If someone goes and looks at the mission statement of the college, sometimes you might be able to glean what they're looking for a little bit. Or if you see that they don't have a 50-50 ratio of male to female, especially when you're looking at engineering schools, it's very rare to have 50-50. It's more like 70-30. So that's an area where they need more women. So in summary, colleges evaluate students on past performances and current contributions, which is something we try to show in the Common App, to determine future success. Colleges are businesses. They want to take students that they think are going to graduate and then become successful, hopefully shine a light on their college and bring attention to them through the media, and then possibly donate lots of money back to the college. So that's the whole kind of cycle. So that is, again, what we're going to try to do tonight to help your students shine. So I have seen a lot of students, Common Apps. Probably this year I'm going to go over 400. And this is like a composite of young men that I've seen. So I made up the student and I made up a common application for him. And we're going to go through that next. And so I'm just going to give you a little background on Jack. So quickly, he goes to public school. He has an unweighted GPA of 3.9, his SATs, 700 English, 740 math. He wants to be a future engineer. So he's taken physics, calculus, and some online classes. He's a National Honor Society member. He's on varsity soccer team and student government. And his focus is recycling there. Oh, it's actually composting. But anyway, I tweaked his profile.
So Ellen, somebody a little earlier kind of asked, can you just explain a little bit more what you mean by a strong narrative? I know you're going to kind of go through it with examples, but
yeah. Okay. It's like the story, like we're going to see that Jack wants to be an engineer. So what has he done to give evidence that he really wants to be an engineer? And, you know, the evidence will be academics. It will come through in hopefully letters of rec. It will come through in his activities. He will focus on elements of it in his essay, in his main essay, possibly, definitely in a why this major essay. So that's the narrative. And that's where I'm giving you the background on Jack. So that I can show you how I'm going to weave these different. And
a narrative doesn't always has to be, you know, what you want to become or what you want to major in, but you have to decide what is it that you want the admissions office and, you know, the officer to, as they're looking at your application, what message do you want them to walk away with about who you are?
Yes, and what helps you to stand out from the competition. So yes, and it could be soft factors like Jack has a stick-to-itness type of attitude, and I'm going to get into that too. So that's something that could be like a thread through his personal statement. All right, because often colleges say they want students that have grit, for example, that have resilience. Okay, so outside of school, this is where a lot of students can stand out because they have different activities that beyond in school, you know, the students tend to do a lot of the same activities. So he's a Boy Scout and he's got an Eagle Scout award. He's helping out his aging grandmother. He flips burgers in the summer. He loves to tinker, and he prides himself on this never give up attitude. So getting to that person's question, how do you tie these varied elements together to make a cohesive narrative that can be reduced down to a sentence? So this is like Jack's elevator pitch if he's, say, doing an interview. He would say he's a natural tinkerer, problem solver, activist, and Eagle Scout with a sense of humor and empathy who uses his engineering abilities and talents to help his community. And we're going to learn more about those extra details in the Common App. And admissions officers do not have a lot of time. You're lucky if you maybe get 8 to 10 minutes of them looking at an application. So they need to do shorthand notes and remind themselves of who a student is. And this is how an admissions officer might reduce Jack's narrative down to a jack of all trades, future engineer, Eagle Scout, and community activist, along with other notes that they put in there too. But that could be at the top of the notes. All right, so that we're going to be looking at Jack's Common App as if through the eyes of an admissions officer. But first, I think Debbie wanted to highlight what we have going on as a special.
Oh, sure. Oh, sorry, I was just answering a question. So Ellen's going to go through an example of how she reviews a student's Common App. And we also have, you know, a service that at some point, if your student wants to have a third set of eyes or second set of eyes, maybe, you know, you're the second set and you want another, even like another set of eyes, to look over what they're doing, we offer these packages. One is just focus on essays. Again, if you need help, if your student needs help, and we work with students kind of wherever they are in the process, meaning if your student hasn't come up with any topics and they don't know what to write about, we work with them to brainstorm. If your student has their idea and they've started a draft, we'll look at the draft and kind of, make sure that it's moving in the right direction. So wherever they are, we can help. And then another package that we have actually does bundle the essay help with looking over your Common App. So that's a pretty popular one that we help a lot of families with. And then the third one is if you also want to include us also taking a look at your college list. So that's kind of looking at, are you applying to the right schools? Is your narrative, what Ellen is kind of going over tonight, is your narrative as strong as possible, to use to apply to the schools that you have on your list. So it's kind of the range, depends on how much help you want. If you need help at all, we've got the services. If that's something that you need, you'll get some emails about it, and you can reach out at any point. So just wanted to let people know how they can get extra help if you need it.
Great. Thank you, Debbie. So now I'm going to jump. Okay, I've got to escape. My escape button is not working, Debbie. I don't know why. That's so odd. I'm going to stop the share and see
Okay,
if I can get out of it.
reshare it.
Yeah, I don't. I'm hitting my escape button on my. I don't know why.
Oh, wait, so you can't find the
Yeah, I can't get out of the share to reduce it to stop the screen.
let's see, because you're not sharing anymore.
Yes, no, I know that, but I can't get it to stop. You know what I mean? To get out of, it's the full page.
Oh, and you hit escape and it didn't work?
Correct. Yes, it's not letting me escape.
Okay, that's weird.
I know.
Do you want to send it to me? I can pull it up.
No, because it's my Common App now. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
I'm going to share my Common App.
Huh.
So I just don't know. I don't understand why it won't let me get out. Do we have any doctors in the house? I can, is there any doctorates of,
Even did you try to click on the screen first before you hit escape? Sometimes, like, if it's inactive.
okay, thank you. There we go. That's why I asked. Awesome. Okay,
Thank
someone
you.
knows what they're doing. Okay, thank you so much. Now, that's a good waste of time. Okay, I'm going to go back to my share. Okay, let me get, oops, sorry. Sharing and, okay, here we go. Hopefully I can get rid. There we go. Okay, yay. Sorry about that. Okay, so I have, you can see in the upper right-hand corner, Welcome Jack. It's a practice application. So I set this up. Your student can open up, they can start their Common App now. August 1st, they have to roll the Common App over. But if they know the colleges they're interested in applying to, they can go into the college search and they can, oh, shoot. What just happened? That was weird. I'm sorry. I think it's because it's been a while since I was in it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you can go into college search, find the college, and then it will come up on the dashboard. And then the colleges will get an alert, a ding, so to speak, that the college has been added. And that's a form of demonstrated interest that they're adding it in July as opposed to November. So that's where the colleges are listed there. And then they can dive into the college. Specifically, this is the college specific section. This part does not roll over August 1st. So do not fill this part out yet. The main part of the Common App, the shared part, the part I'm going to be going over, that part can be rolled over. But I just want to show, if we scroll down to the bottom, this is Tufts, and they have college questions, but they say they do not have any writing supplements. And this is one of the things that makes things a little tricky or confusing. If we go into the questions, we go down to the bottom, and they have short answer questions, right? Well, okay, the yes, no. Oh, look, a 50 to 100 word, I am applying to Tufts because that is a why Tufts essay. And then below it, they want you to answer one of 3 questions. And they are, cool you love learning, what excites you. Basically, what's your favorite hobby, potentially something like that, intellectual curiosity. It's about environment, what's helped shape you. And the other one is a specific example or two about how you've contributed to your community. So there are a lot of community essays. That's a new thing after the Supreme Court decision. So anyway, 200 to 250 words. So they say they have no writing supplements, and here are 2 of them. So I just wanted to share that is how you find them. But now I'm going to jump into the Common App. I'm going to be doing another talk where I go much more into detail about common mistakes I see. This is the Common App for my fictitious Jack that I made. So there's family and education. I'm just going to skip that because that's not relevant to our talk tonight. It's pretty basic. I'm sorry, the education. I'm going to skip the family part. I filled it out ahead of time. You can see all these different sections. And every time a student fills it out, they can click preview and see what it's going to look like when it goes into the PDF. They can also print out their whole PDF to look for mistakes that way if they like, but this is a reduction of the whole education section. He has had no change in progress because he didn't take a year off. They have all different types of ranking, whether it's singular, however your school does ranking, if they do it at all. Jack's fictitious school has a decile rank, so he's in the top 10. His GPA, the school doesn't weight, so he has a non-weighted GPA, 3.9. Normally, a admissions officer or an AO would have a transcript and like letters of rec. I do not have that. So that I'm going to show tonight, but in our example, we're going to pretend that we're setting that aside and we're seeing his, these are going to be his classes for senior year. So we can count that he has 3 APs lined up and that he's also doing guitar building, robotics. That's interesting. But I see he has math, science, English, Spanish, and history. He has the 5 core subjects. And since it's senior year, I'm assuming he has 4 years of the 5 core subjects. The more competitive the college, the more they would want to see that. So honors, National Honor Society, and the Eagle Scout Award, and future plans. There are selections of like scientist, doctor, lawyer. You can scroll down to the bottom of all the careers and choose other, and then you have 100 characters to write in what you want. So that's a little trick. And Jack wrote in mechanical engineer to create devices, solutions to make the world more accessible for the elderly. And he wants a master's. So
Ellen, can we just talk a tiny bit, because there's been a lot of questions, 2 questions.
Okay.
People are confused about the word rollover. Like, what does it mean?
Okay,
So,
okay,
and it's specifically, if people put in colleges now, will that move to the new account?
Yeah, I think my understanding is the colleges will move. It's just you don't want to put the college specifics. Like you don't want to start answering Tufts' question. You can, they can start working on their own, assuming Tufts, they have until August 1st, and sometimes they go beyond that to give the essay. They can change their essays.
You mean so Tufts? So Tufts
correct.
is still deciding. Any college,
any school can still be deciding.
Right.
They're supposed to have it technically done August 1st for the Common App.
And actually, we also even see after August 1st that colleges add, what their essay is. So the point is, it's still a little bit in flux. Like this is from the college side and the Common App, which is an organization, of them managing this platform. So I'm going to show you, Debbie. There is a site that actually it's the International College Counselors, and they keep tabs on the brand new essays when colleges are posting them. These are the most up-to-date essays that are confirmed through, I guess, like their websites. Yeah, because they can't confirm it through the Common App. Exactly. So if you go back, like these are all last year's, and these are all the ones they had last year. But this is, you can check to see if your students,
some of the schools they're considering on this website. But soon enough, they will absolutely be ready to go. So what the rollover is, the Common App they make changes, right? So there's some schools
From one season to the other.
correct.
That's what, yeah.
Some schools are still accepting rolling applications for this fall. So this application season is still going on. But August 1st is when they go into the new 24-25. So I think they might shut down for a couple days right before August 1st, and then they officially open it up. So the rolling over just means that a student can start their application, but then come August 1st, they have to go back in and the Common App will say, oh, do you want to roll over your application? The student says yes, and whatever they put in is rolled over to the next year, but not the school specific sections, only the main part of the Common App that I'm going over now. So I hope that answers that question.
Okay, great.
Okay, and
thanks.
we're very close to August 1st, so if they want to wait until August 1st, wait until August 1st, but it's not a big deal. It's very simple. I roll this over every year so I can use it, and it's very simple. So I have rolled it over. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the next section. Is there another question, Debbie? Go ahead.
I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Raghu, and under the education section, my son is taking an independent college course, not dual enrollment. It's not dual enrollment. So we were able to enter the course details of what that college course details are, where is he taking, what course it is. But then there is one checkbox that we have to choose whether that course is applied towards associate degree or bachelor's degree, or so which option should we choose for my scenario?
I would ask, is it like a dual program through the, you said it isn't a dual program, correct?
It's not a dual enrollment. It's just, he's taking just an independent college course.
Yeah, I would ask you, do you know, Debbie? I mean, I would assume it's working towards a college degree on that one, because if they're getting college credit.
I was going to say, if you're getting college credit, yeah,
So
then,
just choose bachelor's degree?
yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
no
You're
problem.
welcome. Okay. It's really some specific questions you just need to ask your college counselor or the counselor at the high school. Some of these things is, they're very minutia driven. And okay, so now I'm going to jump to testing, the next section. And they ask about APs and SATs, and I'm going to preview it and show you, this is what it looks like for Jack. It's super scoring. He's putting in his best scores, and he's put in the dates when he took it. His best scores happen to be on the same day. And then he has his AP subjects down. You don't have to report all the test scores. You can choose which ones to report. He's reporting 2. So we know senior year, is taking 3 APs, and here we say he's also taken 2. Maybe he took more, but he's only reporting 2 tests. So right now we see he has 5 APs at least that we know of. So he's beginning to show some rigor. I just want to show you one other quick thing. It asks if you want to report your test scores, you can choose not to. If we say no, let's say one school, Jack, wants to report them, and that another school like MIT, those scores would not be good enough. So then you could say no. Obviously, MIT wants test scores though, right? So that's another issue. So forget MIT. You get the point. Some more competitive school. If I say no, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Let me go back. Sorry, let me go into testing. Okay, I'm going back to no. I'm going to show you the preview. Then nothing shows up. So that's how students can take tests, put them in and take them out. If I go back to yes, everything's been saved, but the college that I want to see the test scores will see them. You just have to remember to say no when you don't want to share test scores. So I'm going to now jump into the heart of this whole talk, and that is going over the activity section. So I will jump into preview just to give you an idea of what's going on, but there are 10 potential activities. Jack did not use all of his. And you can see they're filled out well. And now you can see they can choose like community service, they can choose science, math. These are all preloaded family responsibilities. They choose how many years, they choose how many hours per week and the average weeks they do per year, and whether or not they're going to continue it in college. So it looks like this for students to fill out. So that's just one activity. And if they want to change the order, they hit the arrow and it switches. And then I can put it back up if I want to. So order is important too. All right. And I went out of my way to put in all caps the titles because they stand out. There's not much you can do to give a little character to the Common App, but that's one thing a student can consider. So I'm going to go back into the preview. The Common App in total is, depending upon how many supplemental essays, it's about 14, 15 pages, something like that. So, so the activities, I'm going to go over now. I mentioned he was an Eagle Scout. So he petitioned, planned, trail, stairs. I'm sorry. What I wanted to say, for the position, you have 50 characters. For the organization name, you have 100 characters, and for the description, it's 150 characters. So it's 300 characters in total. So you don't have to, like, you can color outside the lines, so to speak, in that I am stretching Eagle Scout, petition, plan, trail, stairs. That is his title. Then the org name, Boy Scouts of America, member since age 8, 30 scouts in troop, 100 plus active scouts in town. Giving some background on the org name. You could also put something else in there. It doesn't have to be all about the organization. And then going into more detail, manage. We see we already know a lot about what Jack is doing before we even get into the description of the activity. Manage 5 scouts, built stairs and railings so people of varying abilities can enjoy trail, problem solve engineering challenges, volunteer with seniors. See how the engineering is being woven into his activities, the narrative. And we know already, because of future plans, that he wants to be an engineer. So Tinkerer, this is where some creative license is taken again. He enjoys taking apart appliances and cars. So his title is Tinkerer. The org name is Home Projects and help neighbors when needed. Watch endless repairman YouTube videos to learn. Again, we haven't even gotten into the description yet, and we have a lot of detail. Tinkered since age 5. So we're showing, depth of this activity. Rebuilt car engine on 1990 Camaro with dad, fixed appliances, built a computer, problem solve, and assist others. We can see that these 2 services, he puts a lot of time into activities. This one, Tinkerer, he does year round, and Boy Scouts, he does it probably maybe just skips in the summer potentially, but he's very committed. So
Ellen, did you mention before you kind of went into this list, the order of how you should put in the activities?
Yeah, well, I showed that you can change the order, and I said order matters. So I have everything grouped together, and I go much more into this when we're doing the more specifics on the Common App. But I have everything front loaded on he's applying to be a student, right? He plays soccer. He's not applying to be a soccer player. He's applying to be a student. And he's applying specifically to be an engineer. So I have all these engineering activities bundled together for impact. That's on purpose. So that is what's going on. So order does matter. So often when I do the reviews of Common Apps, like it's all scattered, things aren't together. So colleges want to see impact.
I think that's a really good point that you just made. Kids, teenagers, they are applying to be students. So, they kind of have to show their academic strengths. So I think that,
Yes. If possible, not
Right.
everyone can, but then show that you have expertise in some kind of area. And again, impact is really important. You can see there are a lot of numbers. Numbers help show impact, and we want evidence. And so then maybe, the counselor or a teacher is going to also verify some of these facts. So that's important too. All right, so next thing.
So Ellen, somebody
sorry.
had a good question that's kind of related to these descriptions. Should they write the descriptions focusing on what they learned or what they did?
You could do both. It just depends. You can see there's a lot of room to say stuff if you do it creatively. If you use common abbreviations, those are okay. It's like a word puzzle. You have
It's a
to
puzzle,
play
right?
with it.
So I want to kind of get across to people, oh, it looks like, oh, there's not much space, you just kind of quickly fill it in. This is an exercise in figuring out what you want to highlight in each of the activities. And as Ellen is showing you here, how to creatively get across as much as possible in as few characters as you have.
Yep. Yeah, I love, word puzzles. So this is always fun for me. And then doing sales and marketing, it also is relatively easy for me. Okay, so family responsibilities. Some students can't do after school clubs or sports. Family responsibilities are important and it's good to know. And some kids just take it for granted. They don't think about some things they do all the time. Maybe a student should think about for a week, writing down everything they do during the week, and they might be surprised how they do spend their time, and they're not always on their phone. So colleges want to know how kids are spending their time when they're not on their phones or playing video games. All right, so he is a grandson and a jack of all trades. He helps his grandmother when assistance is needed, making repairs around her house, go on walks together. As she aged, she found she had trouble on her favorite walk, talked to the senior center in town to build stairs, promoted access. Now we're getting to understand more about his Eagle Scout award. And in his essay, he's going to touch upon it also. So this narrative of him being caring and wanting to problem solve and using engineering skills is being built throughout this application. All right, so he also is in student government, and he's doing an hour a week, 40 weeks a year, but he decided to take it upon himself. He's just a normal rep. And I should probably go back and change this, and for fun, I will show you how I'm going to do it, because I should probably add a few more hours to that activity. So I'm going to do that by just scrolling down here, and I'm going to say he spends 3 hours a week now on this activity. And he doesn't do it all year. If you tap stuff, you have to be careful because it pops off and on. So he does it during the school year. And you can see how, again, I chose student government. Here's his position, but I'm filling it out fully, capitalizing fully the title, and I'm describing the org name, student government, composting committee, initiated and led new program. So quickly giving us background on that. Oops. And then helped create a composting program in school, cafeteria, managed a team of students, connected with composting company, composted 2,000 pounds of food a year, food waste. So impact numbers, right? I'm going to now go back into the preview so we can see it from that view. Preview. Okay, there we go. It looks a lot better in this view, obviously. So here it is. Okay, and I changed, you can see now that I changed that. Okay, so work. He has a job. Fitzsimmons, the Dean of Admissions from Harvard, he's been there now 50 years, Debbie.
Wow.
He says, sometimes he just wants to see kids pumping gas. So it's okay to have a job like that. That has some meaning. There's lots of responsibility. Kids learn a lot. Anyway, he's, instead of just saying, he works the grill, he's showing off his personality. He's got a sense of humor, expert burger flipper, make 300 burgers a shift. Again, showing numbers. Joe's Burgers, most popular independent restaurant in town. Take that, McDonald's. Known for being friendly and clean. Again, I just putting some filler in there. That might not be something you'd want to share, but suggested and implemented faster processes. He wants to be an engineer, so that's really cool. Team leader, train new employees, close restaurant, greet customers with a smile, take pride in my work. So a lot of students train other new employees and they don't think about it. That's leadership, right? Shows maturity. So that's a common job that people have. And he's only doing it in the summers, 35 hours per week, 10 weeks a year. And then the
So-
last thing, sorry. Yep,
Now,
Debbie.
somebody's asking like, how, what if you don't know how many hours? I mean,
You got to
but
guesstimate.
you got to guesstimate, like they were saying, like band, you know, you
Yeah.
just have to kind of come up with some idea.
Yeah, well, so band in school, you know, that's part of school. You aren't necessarily supposed to count that. It's activities outside of school. Like if the student's in band class, that's different. But yes, if they are in band, you got to guesstimate. I mean, if, you know, I played the violin, I never practiced, but that was me. And I was horrible at it, right? But if he is practicing at home and in band and then traveling back and forth, and then maybe, you know, maybe they're in marching band, so then they're traveling with the football team and all this stuff, add it up. It can be more often than not, students underestimate hours, but then I get some students that I start adding it up and they are doing
just doesn't make
more
sense.
hours than there are in a week. So you have to have a balance. Now, some weeks in the summer, they might do a lot more. Like I know with plays are really hard. In the end, the kids are really maybe putting 20 hours in that last week, maybe more. And then in the beginning, you know, maybe it's 30 hours. It's crazy with plays, you know, dress rehearsals and all that stuff, how much time students can be putting into it. So you just have to do a rough guesstimate. Yeah, if it just seems, just keep track of it a little bit and then average it. Okay, so the last thing is soccer. A lot of students have sports, but not every student's being recruited, right? So even though soccer is important to him, he enjoys it, but he's not he's not great at soccer. He's not the star, but he's not ashamed of being a bench warmer. And you know, college is not everyone can be a leader. They need people to follow. They need people to cheer on other people and have positive attitudes. And that's what Jack is highlighting here, that he's a team cheerleader. And he also helps assist with the elementary school players on Saturdays. And he keeps his team stats. Again, engineering numbers, right? He loves the sport, whether playing or watching, and he's always trying to improve and staying in shape. And he won most improved player. So there you go. So many kids do, play soccer, high school soccer team, play soccer. Like they don't say anything. They need to talk about what they do on the team in some capacity. And I gave many good examples here. All right, so that's the end of the activities. I'm going to stop sharing that.
So Ellen, there's a question about once the Common App is submitted for a school, can it be revised?
Okay, yes, every single Common App application is a separate application.
Well, yes and no. Meaning it can be revised for the next college, but
Correct.
the college that
Yes.
it already got submitted to, that's a done deal.
Yes, I was going to just
sorry,
say that.
sorry.
Caveat. No, that's okay. No. You can't make a mistake and send them all out at once because you got to pay, you got to choose the school. Like it's a step-by-step process. But yes, once it's sent out, it is sent. If a student finds they made, a spelling mistake, did something wrong, they could send if they're really like a couple, one or two spelling mistakes, I wouldn't be overly concerned. But if they have something that they are concerned about, they can send a note to their admissions officer and say, I caught this mistake. I'm really sorry. And whatever, this is my updated essay without that mistake. That they can do. And even if the school doesn't replace it, the admissions officer sees they're conscientious and
So,
it will just let them sleep at night.
Somebody's asking, can we edit the activities or the order for different colleges?
Yeah, yep. You can
Would you recommend that?
It depends. Sometimes students have to be strategic about what majors they're applying to because some schools don't have, like, let's say aerospace engineering, like I started with in the beginning, not every school has that. So the student might want to apply to other schools as an engineer. So they might not want to highlight the aerospace part as much, or they might even want to take that activity off. I don't know. I don't know what the student's going to have, but that could be an example where they don't want to act as if they aren't a good fit, or that they tipping off that they're applying to a bunch of other schools that have something they really are more interested in.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go now to the writing section. And all right. So here are all the different questions, but I just always choose share an essay, a topic of your choice. The admissions officers really don't even look at the questions they're choosing. I don't look at them when I'm doing the Common App reviews. A student can choose one, but they're good for like coming up with brainstorming ideas. They used to not have a share an essay. I think they started doing that maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And back then you had to choose one. But now you can always write about a topic of your choice. So I just don't worry about that. The first part, so there are 2 sections to the writing section. So the main essay, or the personal statement, is 650 words. So I'm just going to quickly tell you how I'm going to tie Jack's narrative together and to strengthen his application. So he could use the stick-to-itiveness attitude and desire to help others, opening with sitting on the bench during a soccer game. As he cheers on his team, he starts thinking of some ideas he reflects upon, like how he's tinkered by himself with his dad, how he's helped his grandmother. Maybe he adds something new that we don't know about him, like a physics class project he worked on, and how he sets up study groups for math class after school. And then basically he's thinking about his kind of stick-to-itiveness attitude as he's sitting on the bench, being a bench warmer and not giving up. And then he can come back to soccer and just tie it up with a bow, saying, through all what he's learned through this attitude, he's looking forward to bringing to college to work really hard to become an engineer. Like that could be kind of the narrative and the thread of the essay. So that is the personal statement. Now there's the additional information section under writing. And there is, if a student has, this was set up during COVID, it's, I think it's 250 word essay where they can write about how they've been impacted, maybe sadly by like a natural disaster, like a tornado or something that might have, come through their area. So not many students have this, luckily, an issue they have to write about, but if they do, they can write about it. So the additional information section is another 650 words. Most students do not take advantage of it. It's an overlooked section. You don't want to just write something just to write something. You don't upload a resume here. Some schools let you upload a resume in a part of the Common App. Other schools don't. But this is not the place to do it here if a school doesn't let you upload a resume. If you have an essay that you really liked, but a particular school doesn't ask for like a why this major essay, do not upload it here. That is not the point of this. This is to be much more to the point. And so in this case, Jack is sharing, he's going into detail about his Eagle Scout project. He's going to give some specifics. Maybe he has a link to an article that the newspaper wrote about him, and he could share the link there. And he might have a maker's portfolio because of all the tinkering he's done. Some schools, engineering schools, like to see a maker's portfolio. He might have a link to his maker portfolio, or the school through Slide Room, which is a platform that lets students upload like acting videos and stuff like that. They might have him upload his maker portfolio in that way, but not every school does that. Now we had wondered about Jack's APs. His school, he is letting us know limits the amount of APs he can take. So he can only take 5 APs in total. So that's why he, from as far as we could tell, because we didn't have his transcript, he only had 5. And so every school should have a high school profile that the guidance counselor sends with the transcript, and it should explain things like that. Sometimes it's buried, sometimes it's not. The admissions officer doesn't see it, they're reading quickly. So something like this might be good to highlight. Also, class conflict. He wanted to take AP computer science, but he had a conflict with AP physics. So he chose AP lit instead, making me a better writer. I then took Stanford's Computer Science 101 on edX.org and learned a great deal that will help me as a future engineer. So that's really good to know, right? And I do just want to say, I forgot in activities, I ran over quickly. You guys might have just read it and that's fine, but I didn't go into, I think you asked me a question, Debbie. I don't think that I went into that he made himself an engineering student. So he's taken 3 self-paced in-depth courses over the summer, 2 at MIT and 1 at Stanford. So that's another way to provide evidence that he, wants to be an engineer. And that class conflict, then he explains why he happened to take the computer science one through Stanford, because he wanted to make sure that he had some computer science. Okay,
Ellen, just going back to the other
the writing,
the other section,
the additional information section.
Additional information section.
Okay.
I just wanted to also kind of highlight for people, this is the area where you would like explain like I'm just going to give you examples. A student who might have ended up going to 3 different high schools, and you might want to explain why. A student who maybe had an illness one year, maybe that's like why their grade isn't like, there might be some class that just kind of like is just out of line with how they performed versus other classes, and you want to explain why, or they want to explain why. So this is kind of the section to add more explanation to maybe what might be going on. Whether it could be academic, it could be emotional, it could be family issues, that is just not going to come through anyplace else in the application. But as Ellen said, it's not the place to kind of write a second essay for no reason. It's to explain kind of anomalies or things that are happening that an admissions officer would never know by looking at the rest of the application.
Yes. So 2 points, Debbie. It is before 9 o'clock. So I am done with my part of the presentation. If we're going over, it's not my fault. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, I know we're going to get this question because we always do. A parent will ask, when do you share about a learning difference, right? This would potentially, if let's say the student has an upward trend with their grades because they maybe didn't know they were dyslexic, or that they had ADHD and they finally had it, they were diagnosed.
Yeah.
And this could be, my grades, were not that great freshman year, but once I found out sophomore year that I had ADHD and I was able to implement strategies, my grades shot up, and I'm really proud of the hard work I put into learning how to manage, the ADHD. So that is a time where I would definitely share if it helps to explain an issue. If there is no explanation, I mean, if the student just sadly was being lazy, then I don't know then you don't see anything regarding it.
Right.
So, and if a student, say, does have issues with, let's say, being with having ADHD, but it doesn't reflect in their grades, you don't have to
bring it up. Yeah,
exactly. So you only bring it up if it helps to explain it. I see someone has their hand up.
Yes. I guess it's just listed as Ms. S. Miss S, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. I'm sorry to take up your time. So just to touch on that, if a student has an IEP, is this a section where we mention it, or is it somewhere, like uploaded automatically somewhere else in their transcripts, or is like mentioned?
Okay, so you should always ask to see your student's transcript. Then you will see what is being mentioned on it.
Yeah,
right?
We don't know. Sometimes it may or may not be.
I would. I've never seen it mentioned there, but I don't know. I mean, it might have a course that might tip that. And for example, they might also, some transcripts automatically put SATs on there. Like you don't want to share it and it's on the transcript. It's always good check to make sure the grades are all good, that kind of stuff. So what can happen in that particular case? The counselor might address it. You could ask the counselor, give them permission, say, could you please address my child's learning challenge, the IEP? So they could address it, and or the student could address it in this section too. Or they might just leave the counselor to address it. So it's really up to you guys how you want to handle it. But yes, this could be the place.
But you do recommend addressing it somewhere.
Again, it depends on the grades. If there is, if the grades need an explanation and that is the answer, then yes, I probably would. if your student does not have an issue with grades, I would not mention the IEP.
I mean, they might have, like, the purpose of the IEP is to provide support. And if they got the proper support and it helped them to do well, you don't necessarily have to share that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And if your child doesn't have an IEP, once they're into a college, I would then go to the special services and after they're accepted and see what their special services are, like how supportive are they, and get the ball rolling so that your student can, hit the ground running, get them that paperwork and stuff when they start college.
Okay. Michael, do you want to unmute, ask your question?
Yeah, hey, I heard earlier when you were talking about activities to not list in-school activities. So
Yeah,
I
no, I
heard-
didn't. No, I didn't say that. I said don't. If you're in band, it's a class that is not considered. A class is not considered an activity. So I
Okay.
didn't say in school. Yeah, that
Well,
just to be clear.
what I'm discussing, like this year, I'm gonna take like a tutoring class. Like I'm gonna help people get tutored. And
Okay.
it's kind of like service, but it's on my class schedule. So how would I
Okay.
list that? Or I just leave it on my additional information?
Yeah, again, it isn't like, I don't know how many people are going to hold you to something like that, right? But yes, you could, if it's on your transcript, you could highlight in the additional information section that I signed up for this class and these were my responsibilities and this is what I learned from it. So that could be a way, especially if you have other activities that you'd prefer to highlight over that. That would be the additional information section could be amazing. Another thing where it could be highlighted is through a letter of rec, through maybe you're in a class with that teacher, and that teacher's going to also mention you doing the tutoring potentially, or the counselor might mention it. If you can give a cover letter or a brag sheet and ask people that are writing letters to highlight certain parts of your application or your activities so that different parts are touched upon. So you basically don't want to repeat things. In an ideal situation, every part of the Common App comes at you from a different angle, all supporting and giving evidence and showing depth and a continuous narrative.
Okay. Patty, you want to ask your question?
Yes, please. Thank you for this presentation. My question is, in the additional information section, should we put or add our LinkedIn account, or is that a no-no?
You can add it. Some admissions officers are told they can't go after links. They might not have time. It could be something if a student puts it on their resume and they introduce themselves to the admissions officer, maybe through an email, that then it's on the resume and they might choose to follow the link out of curiosity. So there's different ways to kind of give them access, but it doesn't mean they have time or are going to do anything with it.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ellen, there was a question early on, which I think is a good one to kind of circle back to. And somebody asked if a college has their own application on their website, and they're also on the Common App, does it make a difference which application a student uses?
So if a college joins the Common App, they agree to not have any preference over their own application versus the Common App. So no, there is not a benefit to, it's a lot easier to just do it through the Common App. But some schools like MIT and Georgetown have their own separate application. You cannot do it on the Common App.
Okay, here's a good question. How do college admissions officers verify the work that you include on your Common App?
Yes. So again, the letters of rec can be verifying. It could be, like I said, if you happen to provide a link, if they're able to look at it, I would hope that a student wouldn't be providing like a newspaper link, even if they don't look at it, if there was nothing there, you know what I mean? So, and then yes, I think the best way are the letters of rec confirming certain aspects.
But I guess the reality is they're not going to kind of go look up and say,
Yep.
Oh, did you really do this internship? I mean, they may not go out of the way to verify, but the opposite, if something comes across their desk that kind of makes them curious to kind of go further and check. If you're found out that you said something was untrue, that's obviously not good, and that's probably kind of the death of your application. But they're not going to verify every single thing because they just don't have the time.
Yes, and like what we saw with Varsity Blues, though, that people can get their be pulled out of college if they misrepresent themselves. So it's not something someone wants to do. They go in with the assumption that what you're saying is true, but if there are other verifying pieces, it definitely helps.
Ellen, can you just talk a little bit about the example we gave tonight was great. The student had a clear direction. What about the student who is undecided? Like, how do they figure out what their narrative could or should be?
So it's okay to be undecided. The student just has to show what passions they do have. What are they interested in? So they might not be sure, they might be considering 2 or 3 majors, right? And that's okay. So how are they exploring those different majors? And also, maybe how are they intertwined? Some colleges have like an independent major, and you can make your own major. So that might be an interesting, if some of the schools they're looking at have that might be a cool thing to talk about too, whether it's in a college specific essay, or while they're being interviewed, or reaching out to an admissions officer saying, hey, this is what I'm interested in. And I would be excited, to make up my own major.
How far back should people or students go in terms of sharing activities? To just be high school?
Yeah, you want to focus on high school, right? But as you might have noticed in some of my examples, like he was an Eagle Scout, in Boy Scouts, I think since he was age 8 or something. So you can put in there so they can see how long he's been doing that activity, but you don't want to, take activities from junior high that the student's no longer doing. It should be from high school. But like a student could have done a lot of theater. So maybe a student has been in 30 shows since they started acting at age 5. So impact numbers, in 30 shows since age 5, 8 leads, things like that.
Here's a question which always comes up a lot, which is fine, about honor society. Where does that go? Under the activities section, under the other section of the of honors? Yeah.
So honor society, it can be under the awards, right? If a student is active in the honor society, like tutoring or volunteering in another capacity, that can be considered an activity. Usually it depends how many activities a student has, right? If they have like 12 activities they want to put down, I wouldn't double dip on National Honor Society. I would consider it possibly an honor, but if you have more, you only have 5 honors. So if you have 6 honors, I might not even use National Honor Society. A lot of students have it. So it is not a standout award. It's nice to have, but it's not going to make or break anything. So in that scenario, I wouldn't even share it. But if they want to put it in one or the other, just put it in one. But if they're really active in National Honor Society, then I would probably lead with it as an activity.
Okay. We touched on this, but we didn't address probably like the common question related to AP scores. When to report your AP score, depending on what you've received.
Yeah. So someone just asked if they've got an AP Scholars Award. Yes, you would put that in the honor section. And someone asked if the honor roll is the same as National Honor Society. They're different.
Right.
But they're about, being, awarded, recognized as a student for academics as one element. But I'm sorry, Debbie, I forgot.
About
I got
AP.
I got it. Sorry. Okay. So generally the best way to figure out whether or not to report it for one school or another, right? Because you can report it for one and not for another, is to go and put in the school name and say, whatever, NYU credit for APs. And then NYU will show whether or not they give credit. And if they do, they might say in art history, you need a 5, but in chemistry, you need a 4 to get a credit. So they will differentiate. And then usually state schools tend to give credit for a lot of 3s. So that is how I would decide whether or not to share, whether or not they're going to give credit, because that shows how much they respect that score or not.
But what's your explanation of if a
I'm sorry.
student doesn't share a score?
Oh,
do you
I'm
think
sorry.
that-
I missed that part. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So colleges are not supposed to try to guess. Admissions officers, they're supposed to try to guess why you haven't shared a score. It could be, and if this is the case, right, maybe a teacher left the school 2 months before the exam and they couldn't find anyone else to teach the class. So, or they found someone, but that person was brand new. So they really weren't able to review properly. So then no one took the test, or you did really poorly because you didn't have proper review with a teacher that was, had been teaching the test or teaching the class. So that could be the additional information section. I was planning on taking this test. Unfortunately, my teacher left for, whatever reason, all of a sudden, and no one could fill in properly. And, I decided not to take the test, or, in turn, it didn't reflect what I think is good enough for my, it doesn't match my grade. So that could be a reason to bring it up. But I'd also probably have the counselor confirm that. I would say, could you please add that to the letter? That's what I probably would do. So it doesn't sound like you're whining and complaining and stuff like that. You never want to come across as you're complaining.
Somebody else kind of, this is related to the AP topic. Can you state that you're working to complete an AP capstone diploma by the end of senior year? So that obviously
Yes.
won't be any place. So
Yes. Yeah. And there's like the AP research, and I think the capstone, that's part of the capstone. I think I'm more, my kids did IB, so I know IB much better. But, and similar to IB has an extended essay, the additional information section can highlight what they're doing for the capstone, just like it can, the the extended essay for the IB can be fleshed out there too. So they can see what they're choosing to study, because the extended essay, they choose their topic. They probably do the same thing with the research project for AP, and they can see what the students intellectually interested in.
somebody's asking, do you recommend using an essay written for a topic from an English class, or do you always recommend creating a new personal statement essay?
So is the question an essay that was supposed to be for the Common App, or is it just any old essay that they wrote in English
Well,
class?
answer, maybe like you can kind of address
Yeah.
both.
Okay, all right. Well, any old essay from English class
Is not gonna
yes,
cut
it's not
it.
going to, because it's got to be about you. And usually how they write the personal statement is not usually how they've ever written before. It's different. And then, yes, I tend to find, and there are always exceptions, but when a student gives me an essay they wrote in English class, that was like, they wrote it in June at the end of the year, and it's supposed to be for the Common App. I tend to find that it misses the mark often. That it might be a good starting point, but I tend to find that it doesn't have as much depth, I think, as it could have. That's what I find. The kids just kind of rush it off. The teacher's like, fine, end of the year, That's just been my experience.
Okay, how about we'll just go through a few more questions. Test scores. What's your thought about for a test optional school when the students should be adding in their test scores on the Common App?
Yeah, you look to see if you're between the, at least above the 25th percentile, hopefully above the 50, but above the 25th percentile isn't bad nowadays, because the test scores are so inflated from all the students that do not submit them. If you go back in time and go before COVID and see what the test scores were then, that can give you an idea, because the schools that have now gone back to mandatory test scores, those average are going to drop. So like, if you're not sure, like say whether or not your test scores are even good enough at schools where you have to submit now, you can go back and look to see what they were back in like 2019 to see if back then your scores would have been in line. So that is how I would judge whether or not to submit test scores when a school is test optional, because they all post their ranges generally. There are some exceptions.
So what's your opinion, Ellen, from like, talking to different college counselors, just being on lots of, sessions with colleges about how much time an admissions officer really spends on an application, and do they really read the essay? And I can add what I just heard from the admissions officer at Emory from the other night.
Yeah, so the first hoop in the process, does the student have the right grades and stats to even be considered, right? So activities and a really good narrative can tip a student, an essay like over into the admit pile, but a really good essay or exceptional activities are not going to raise the dead. So I just want to make that first point. The second point is every school is going to be different, and every counselor is going to be different. Some schools require 40 applications read a day, by admissions officers. Some schools went 60. So 80% of students roughly are admissible at the schools they apply to. 80% of the students. So meaning that students self-select. So often the grades are good enough. They might not be the top grades, but their grades could be good enough for the student to be successful at the school. That's when they spend more time. Yes, they are speed readers. They read very quickly. So they're not going to catch all the nuance / potential grammar, whether or not you're perseverating over a semicolon versus a colon versus a comma, or an em dash for that matter. So sometimes I think people put too much emphasis on the essay. That all being said, the supplemental essays are where people do not put enough time. And that can be a deciding factor, because they want to know that you know enough about their school, that you did your homework, that you took the time. It's another way to show demonstrated interest. And so I would make sure that my supplemental essays or college-specific essays are as well written, if not better written, than the personal statement, or at least definitely take the time to put specifics in it. So, I hear all different things. I hear back before COVID, I would say I would hear maybe 12 to 15 minutes. Now I hear 6 to 8, depending. It all depends. But first, the student has to jump through the hoop of the grades and test scores if they're submitting them.
I agree with Ellen. We happened to have done a session last week with an admissions officer from Emory. And so this just shows you, I'll just share with you what he told us. And it just shows kind of that some things are going to vary from school to school. At Emory, he was very particular to say that they do look at every application that comes through. They do read every essay because they are committed to what he described as the holistic approach. And it sounded like they probably spend between 10 and 12 minutes on an application. I would say that at other schools, even that at the same caliber of Emory, they may do kind of a little bit more what Ellen was saying, where they are truly looking at the academics and kind of making a decision about whether or not to go forward and read the essay after deciding whether the student is strong enough academically. So there isn't like a blanket answer about how all the colleges approach this the same way. I personally think these are great questions. These are questions you can ask an admissions officer. You can send this in an email. You can ask it at an open house, or if they're coming to your school for a session. these are valid questions to ask, and I think they actually appreciate being asked this, and then they can explain their process.
Yeah,
So-
so like admit by number schools tend to be state university
Yes,
schools.
yes.
Liberal arts schools and some of the more competitive schools tend to be more holistic. And to Debbie's point, each process is different, but sometimes they have two readers reading at the same time. One is looking at the transcript and the high school profile and test scores. The other one is reading the application. And they're doing it at the same time, both taking notes to try to make sure there isn't bias, and they both come together and discuss it. So one person might just be reading the essays and the activities. So they have a little bit more of an eye towards it. So, but other places, someone's reading it all, or every two different people read it fully through. But again, the admit by number schools are much more, you don't have the numbers, and that's it. And those are going to be your much larger universities.
Okay, good question about letter of recommendation. Somebody's asking, should it be a certain length, a page, a paragraph? Maybe explain a tiny bit about how the letters of recommendation work, how, like, what the student, like, as you kind of alluded to earlier, might want to do to help whoever they're asking write the letter. And then there's really a form that the person is filling out that is coming from the Common App.
Yeah, the teachers have a form, so does the counselor. They're different forms, and some schools don't want any letters, or some schools just want the form from the counselor. Some counselors could write a letter, but they aren't capable because they have too many kids or they don't know you. So you might not get a letter from the counselor. Some schools want 2 letters. From teachers. Some schools only want 1, or it's an optional letter from a teacher. It just all depends. But to guide the teacher, you can give them your resume. You can say to this, if you say you're getting 2 teachers, you can ask one teacher to highlight one aspect of you, like say you're a science kid and you want that teacher to focus on some of the projects you've done. So you let them know, and you let them know the schools you're applying to. But like MIT wants a letter from a humanities teacher and one from a STEM teacher. So then that science kid should then also, maybe gets their English teacher, and they tell their English teacher about how they've been writing have a researched paper that they wrote up, and that English teacher can comment on how they write really well, explaining scientific data. So they're getting 2 different sides. So that is a way to do a cover letter and ask the teacher to, gently say, could you please highlight these aspects of my application? Make a suggestion. The teacher's going to do what they're going to do. But
Right.
If you write it up well, they might actually take paragraphs out of your cover letter.
Think about it. I'm not want to say this is not their favorite activity, but this is just like this is additional
They're
work.
not paid to do it.
Yes.
It's
So
kind of
anything
crazy.
you can make it easier for them to do, they will love it. If you, even if you highlight something that they didn't remember happened in class, that's unique, and you have it written out, like if they can just kind of grab it, they will, and it just makes their life easier.
Yep. You might say like, oh, after we read that book in English class, I went and read 2 more novels by that particular author. And whether or not you've mentioned that to the teacher already, maybe you go out of your way to mention it, but then you remind them that you did mention it. And now you have, whatever, that's become your favorite genre, whatever you might want them to touch upon.
Okay, quick question, because it was asked a few times and I can't remember. In the classes, where the student is listing out the classes, do they just list it out for senior year or junior year?
They've only put it for senior year because they're showing that they're putting down those are the classes they're taking. Otherwise, everything else is on the transcript. And because like otherwise some schools, they're just getting the transcript for the end of junior year. So the senior year classes aren't on it because they don't have any grades yet. So I think that's why it's set up that way. But then some schools, is it the SSAR, Debbie?
Yes.
Some schools, they have to self-report because it can take a while for the AOs to transcribe and put what classes they're putting in. So they make the student do it. So I've never personally had to fill it out, but it's at the end of the Common App application. The very large universities generally have schools, a lot of the publics have students fill out all their grades and all their courses, in addition to the transcript being sent in. And so that can be a little labor intensive, and it might take maybe 45 minutes to an hour. I'm not sure. And if they have questions about how to do exactly, I would ask their high school counselor, because I know sometimes kids can have questions. It can be a little tricky.
Okay, last question. I just think this is an interesting one. We did kind of touch about majors. Somebody is asking, what if the major that they're interested in is not very popular? It's only 1% enrolled. Does this mean that something might be going on with that major at the college if there's not a lot of students who are really going after it?
Well, is it a popular major? Isn't it a popular major? Like, classics, that's a major that not too many people do. I know back in the day, again, going back to Harvard, Fitzsimmons used to say if someone was a classics major, they'd have an edge. I heard him a couple of years ago say if someone now is a humanities major, find Harvard, they have an edge. So so I wouldn't take it to mean that isn't a major that is well supported in the school. Just again, there are a lot of undersubscribed majors, but if very few people are taking it, maybe it isn't maybe there might be another school where it's a more vibrant major potentially, but at the same time, they could get lots of attention. My daughter is studying the classics, and she's going to take a class where there are only going to be 2 of them in the class. Like she's going to get a lot of attention from that teacher. So that's not the worst thing either. So you dig into the professors, see what their background is, see where they went to school. Maybe they have some of their published papers listed, see how the class is described, the different courses they're offering, how often they're offered. And those could all give you a clue. And you could always reach out to the chair of that department and just say, hey, I'm just wondering, you don't have a lot of students graduating with this major. What's going on? But if you look at other schools, they might similarly have not that many either, unless it's a very large school versus a smaller, liberal arts school versus the large university. Of course, the numbers are going to be different.
So one thing I want to kind of impress upon, kind of what Ellen is saying, and kind of a lot of the things that came up tonight. If you've got a question, unfortunately, this whole process can be very particular. Like, we can kind of tell you generally how it works, but things vary by school,
by student,
right? By
high school,
by department within a college and everything. Yeah. So I would never be afraid to ask any question to the college and to the admissions officer, or maybe even to, a particular department. I cannot promise that you will get an answer, but you should try.
Well, I would just say you do not ask an obvious question. Try to do the research yourself first. And then if you can't come up with it, then it probably isn't a bad idea to ask. Yeah. Because you don't want to waste their time, and you want to, at least show that you could say, hey, I did this research and couldn't find an answer.
That's actually, yes. Thank you, Ellen, for putting it straight. Okay. Well, it's now officially 9:29. So thank you everybody for showing up. I know I think we really answered a lot of the questions. And to tell you the truth, there were some very specific questions, which I tried to give an answer quickly to, but if you want more help, feel free, reach out. We can help with the essays, the Common App. We could just do a general, what we call like a strategy session. If you just have questions about how to apply, meaning like, should my student apply early decision here, or should they apply for a major, at this particular school? Those are, Ellen in particular loves to have these discussions, as you can see from tonight. There's, lots of different ways we can help, lots of different ways you can kind of do, as much work as you can. So hopefully tonight was helpful. It is July 21st. I kind of say this every time we do these types of sessions. If you haven't started your essay, please get started, because it just will become a better essay for you, and it will be less stress for you, your family, and particularly your senior fall year at high school. Okay, thank you, Ellen. As always, a pleasure. a ton of information that you bring to all of these sessions. And I pretty sure that everybody got a lot of information out of tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us, and I wish everyone the best of luck with the process.
Absolutely. Okay. Take care. Good night.
Good night.